Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Shane Baker with Shane Baker Studios, and we're bringing you an amazing interview with top photographer Jeffrey Goodman. And at the peak of his career, he had a day rate of $50,000. One client, one day, show up 50 grand. That's just awesome. That's more money than most photographers will make in a year. So we have Jeffrey here. He's going to share tons of information on how to grow your business and take it to the next level. And this applies not just to photographers, but anybody, makeup artists, stylists, designers, even other industries can take advantage of some of the things that he shares in this value-packed interview. And it's all part of the Arizona Creative Professionals. It's a group that I founded in 2015 with the belief and the idea that we can all improve and get better by sharing. We're not competition with one another. And we really believe that there's enough business for everyone, that we don't have to have a scarcity mentality when it comes to the arts. So I hope this helps. If you're interested in joining the Arizona Creative Professionals, check us out on Facebook by searching Arizona Creative Professionals and click join. And if you're interested in booking a shoot with me, you can check out my website, shanebakerstudios.com, and you can find more about Jeffrey at careerhearted.com. Take care. Oh, I love the snakes. All right, so we got Jim here. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Jim. All right, so it is 7:04. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Everybody else is watching on the actual live YouTube feed, and then this will be saved to YouTube as well, so you guys can go back and watch it. However, those that are actually with us on the Google Hangouts will be able to interact, ask some questions. So there should be a chat feature here too. So I see a few people here. John, Ronnie, Ghost Shrimp. Well, Ronnie, I don't know what that means, right?
Oh, he's referring to the shrimp I have in my tank.
Oh, he's very observant. That's good. So if you guys have any questions throughout the course of this conversation, please go ahead and type them in there, and I'll make sure that I ask them to Jeffrey so that everybody else can hear what the question is, because they're not going to be a part of the actual chat. So first off, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and then especially Jeffrey for joining us here for this webinar. So I appreciate you having you here, man.
Absolutely. I've been excited to share with you guys today.
Yeah, and so we met, how long has it been now? About a month? We've known each other?
Just about a month, maybe.
Just about,
that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so we met through a connection with Kaiser Real Estate, who this is the power of networking, man. So I've been going to Kaiser for some really cool leadership training, and through that course and that relationship, got introduced to Jeffrey through a guy named Devin there, and spawned a whole new relationship and business opportunities for the two of us.
Yeah, and before I forget, Jim, maybe if you can mute, we got a couple people that we're getting some. It's pretty loud on my ear.
Is it?
Yeah, I think there's one or two people. Their microphones are moving around pretty good.
All right, let me do this. How's that? Is that better? Oh, I think I might have muted you.
There you go. Okay.
I muted you as well.
There you go. Excellent.
All right, good stuff, my friend. So as we dive in, what I'd like to do is have you just give us kind of the brief overview, and we're taking this, obviously you've gone on and done far more than just the photography thing, but since we are the ACP and I've already explained to you what that is, you have a pretty good idea. Let's start kind of with how you got into photography, a brief overview of your career, and then maybe kind of a snippet of what you're doing, and then we can loop back at the end and talk more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, actually, my time of photography started when I was 9. Actually, before that, when I was 8, my mom was a school teacher and I was going to the same school she was, and I'd have to stay after school while she did lesson plans. And the local art teacher said, "Hey, if you're interested, I could, take and teach you some, about photography while you're waiting for your mom." So I said, "That sounds good." So she started teaching me pictures, teach me about taking pictures when I was 8, brought me to the dark room, fell in love. I mean, I still remember to this day developing my first black and white photo. And at 9 was given my first camera. And at 13 got a job working with a photographer. And literally my first hour there, I fell in love, and just knew that was going to be what I was doing for the rest of my life. And
Right.
so, so that photographer was a portrait photographer. So I learned a lot about um, shooting people, just everyday people. But also during that time, I think that was the most valuable because I not only was learning about taking pictures, but spent a lot of time behind the scenes learning how to run a business. We managed the business and photographing people all day, and after work I'd stay and work with his wife, who was the kind of the accountant bookkeeper for the business, and learn that side of business as well. And grew up in that. The long list of just accomplishments at that time. At 17, I won a national award in an organization that did not allow photographers under the age of like 25 to even join, and I got one of my photos.
Tell me the story about that. Tell us the story about how you won that award.
Say that again.
Tell us the story about how you won that award.
Wanted to submit. They kicked it back and said that you're too young, and I am not one to always like to follow the rules. And so we submitted my photo with another photographer that was a member of this organization. It was a national organization. They've been around for over 100 years, and they had in the rules that you had to be a professional photographer for a certain amount of time and no younger than 25. So we submitted my photo in. I won the award, and then I went up to get the national award. It was one of the highest honors, and said, and by the way, I'm 17, and it caused a huge ruckus, and and they had to go back and reevaluate all their bylaws and this whole process, and because of that, they wound up changing the rules, and now photography competition is open to anybody. Even though it's a national for professional photographers, they're no longer restricting it to an age limit, and really respecting that younger generation can be just as skilled. So
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Absolutely. There's a lot of life lessons in that story, right?
Yes, exactly, and just. Yeah.
All right, so 17, you won the award, and then you're at this time you're still working with this couple, right? So what happens after that? How do you get out onto your own, doing your own thing?
So I went to school for photography. I was accepted at all the top photography schools, RISD, RIT, Brooks, and I wound up calling a lot of those graduates saying, "What is your career like now?" A lot of the alumni. And most of them actually were out of business. They said great schools, learned some great photography, but didn't know much about business. And I went to another school that had a photography program, yet gave me the opportunity to learn other things other than just taking pictures. So went to school. I
want to pause there for a moment because I think it's really valuable for people to know that before you embarked on this path, you reached out to people that had already done it and had a conversation with them to find out what the reality was on the other end. So how many photographers are reaching out to those that are in their field at higher levels and asking them, how did you get here? What's it like? Going for you is that school process. Let's call the graduates and find out what their career's like. And so I think that's an important lesson for everybody, whether you're a model, makeup artist, or stylist, is to really find those people that are at the top of their game or have gone through the process that you're about to embark on and say, hey, what's it like? Give me some feedback from the front.
It's really true. That's actually a good point. I was thinking about our call today, and I know one of the most valuable things that someone can bring to a call is what are the mistakes we've learned? What are the things that we could do different? And that was always a thing that before I made a choice, I would call people, and I did that. Even when I became a photographer, I called about the top 20 photographers in the United States, and I'll ask them the same question and said, hey, if you ever to do it differently, what would you do differently?
I love that. You've given me an idea.
Yes. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So, and that saved me from making major mistakes in my life. And that another one was, I'm about ready to go to school. I was going to be putting myself through school, so I was paying for it. And a lot of these schools at that time were 30, 40, 50, $60,000 a year. And for me, hey Shane, you froze. I want to make sure we're still good.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. All right, we just froze up. So called all these alumni and they said, hey, great school, but learned about photography. So anyway, went to another school. My senior year was to get an internship, and that would be with another photographer. Wound up getting an internship with Steve Maisel. At that time, he was one of the top fashion photographers in the world. And
where was this based out of? What city?
He was in New York.
Got it.
Okay, and a week before my internship, and this was, I had to have an internship to graduate, and even then, the school that I was at didn't let out-of-state interns, or out-of-state internships yet stay local, and I wanted to push myself, so I broke all the rules there, and they had to kind of recreate how they allowed internships at that school because I got an out-of-state internship. Anyway,
right.
Steve's assistant called me a week before I was supposed to go to New York, or 10 days before I was supposed to go to New York, and he said, hey, I blew it. I forgot to put you on a contract for a photo shoot we have coming up, and because it's an NDA and the contract's already in, I can't bring you out because we're actually going to another country to do this photo shoot. You can come to New York, but we're not going to be here. And so at last second, I had to find a new internship, which I found in Chicago. Anyway, 8 months later, I found out that that photo shoot that the intern or the assistant forgot to get me on was the Madonna photo shoot for her sex book she put out years ago.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
man.
I know, right? So
missed opportunity.
Yeah. So that's Steve Maisel. He was the one that that was one of his claims of putting that book together.
And what school did you end up choosing to go to? We had somebody ask that question.
It was a state school in Massachusetts, Fitchburg State. I really chose it because it was not a known school, but I really chose professors. A lot of professors, not only did they teach, but they had a career too. They had real life experience in what they were teaching, and that was most valuable. So that they were more than just a person teaching information. They really knew what they were talking about.
And so I want to stop kind of right there for a minute, because one of the things that you mentioned earlier that was really important to you was finding a school that not only taught you great photography but also the business side.
Yes.
Even at a very young age, you already knew that if I'm going to do this full time, I might be the best person in the world at taking photos, but if I suck at the business side, no one's going to know about it.
It's 100%. To this day, actually, the most valuable course I took in college, believe it or not, it was a class I really resisted taking, was a child psychology class in college. And
so what was valuable about that?
Actually, what most valuable was learning about human behavior.
Wow.
And at the core of our human behavior, why we think, why we do what we do at the core, and it was that information that I was able to cross over when I did contract negotiation with clients, or bidding on jobs, or working with models, or anyone. Just really understand how we operate at that core, and from that I leveraged that information and took it so much deeper and so much more vast in what I now study. But it was that piece more than anything else. My dad said you need to take an accounting course. I never took an accounting course. I said I'll just hire people to do my accounting. But it was that child psychology piece that was more valuable than any course I took.
That says a lot, absolutely. And so, well, especially with photography, because it's such an intimate art form where you're connecting and trying to, there's a lot of different ways to say, whether you're drawing something out from the viewer or interacting with your subject. There's a lot of psychology that goes into really great photos. So
absolutely. And anywhere along our path, as photographers, we're interacting with people. It doesn't matter if your subject matter is people, then that's obvious. But if your subject matter is product, you're still wanting to interact with your clients who want you to photograph this product, or with consumers, understanding the consumers, or if you're photographing art, if you're doing landscapes, you're going to be working with art dealers or people that want to buy your photography, or in some way, shape, or form, we're going to be engaging with people. And I find a lot of photographers, by nature, we tend to be more shy. We like to hide behind that camera.
Right.
So having some level of people skills and intellect is critical for, and I'd say is really the root for my successes, which we'll talk about.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. So we'll go back to the story now. So Steve Meisel, you missed the photo shoot, the intern, right? And then, so you're looking for another internship to be able to fully graduate from this college, and you land in Chicago.
Landed in Chicago, worked with this photographer. For another time, I've got war stories of the wazoo. I mean, to give you an idea, when photo assistants would, at the end of the day, would go out for beers, and part of the ritual was you would share your war stories of, how bad your day was, and whoever had the worst day got the beers bought for them, and everyone would share their stories. And I'd say, yeah, I work for this guy, and everyone would say, we don't need to hear your stories. We're buying your beers. He was actually rated one of the worst photographers to work with in the whole Midwest East Coast, and probably one of the best teachers I ever had in regards to not teaching me about photography, but learning about what I'm really capable of, because he pushed me, not intentionally, but just pushed me because of who he was as a person, not a nice person.
Right. So there's a couple of interesting things here to talk about. So you're in Chicago. They got this huge industry. There's a lot of top photographers, and I think it's interesting because I don't know of anything in Phoenix where interns are getting together and having those kind of conversations. I don't even know if most photographers here in Phoenix have interns, first off. Yeah. So that idea of having an intern and being one, maybe can we talk about that for a moment, and why that was important for you, and how you saw that valuable to not only the photographer but also to you as the intern?
Right. Well, part of it, the intern was a requirement for college. And,
right.
So another way, like the difference between an intern and an assistant was I wasn't getting paid for learning. Now, even I would strongly recommend anyone to put themselves in a position that if they want to learn from someone and that person can't pay them, go work with them anyway, and be willing to do anything. And I'm literally saying anything. When I was interning with this photographer, I literally had to shovel the shit out of his backyard because he had dogs at the studio, and it was part of my job to manage that as well too. And if I can tell you, if you're the type of person that has the ego that says, oh, I wouldn't do that, you're not made for this work. Because there are times that you really have to stretch yourself, and how far are you willing to stretch? And now, I would recommend it, but it's a piece to get into, is really just doing whatever it takes. And with that, I got more value to learning than I could have ever paid anyone. And
right.
So.
And I think your comment about putting aside the ego to get what you really want is I think we have a lot of people, and I've met a lot of so-called photographers that have a huge ego based on nothing, really, to be honest. I'm like, no one's stealing your work, man. It's not that great. And I think that's part of the challenge to artists in general, and is that ego and putting it aside. And realizing that, hey, the more humble you are, the more opportunities that open up to you.
It's so important, absolutely. And we'll make sure we talk about that too, about how I got my first job, and then how I built my business too, was really creating a whole new approach to how I market. And one of the key things though is when I worked with that photographer and then moved to an assistant, but every photographer I assisted, one of the things I did more than any other was I said, hey, would you show me your business? Show me the back end. Let me learn how you do things. How do you file? How do you organize? How do you invoice? How do you bill? And and a lot of these photographers would show me and they hated it. I mean, I've had photographers just give me a box of their receipts saying, I got these boxes of receipts, I've got taxes coming up, can you do something with it? I'm like, absolutely. I'd say 90% of my time as an intern, as an assistant, was doing everything else but being around taking pictures. It was all about the business stuff.
Right.
Taking pictures, you can always develop that. That I can do on my own, but learning business was critical, and I spent so much of my time just being a sponge for learning all these different ways photographers ran their businesses and how they did things. And I just said, show me anything. I will do anything. If you need me to file paperwork, I'll file paperwork, because I learned from that.
Yeah, and I think that goes without saying for models, makeup artists. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Is that from your end, Jeffrey?
Is it mine, guys?
It might be a little bit.
Do
you have another window open with this conversation in?
I don't.
All right.
Give me 1 second. Let's see. So.
Okay, I think we're all right. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, but I think that's important for whether you're a model, a makeup artist, a stylist, designer, really anybody that wants to do this at a high level. I mean, obviously, if you want to be just a hobbyist and an amateur, you do whatever you want, and it doesn't really matter because you're not doing it to make a living. You're just doing it for fun. That is not my intention. Obviously, that wasn't the path that you went. And many of the people on the phone call today or the webinar today, their intention is to supplement their income with their photography or their modeling or their makeup, or completely replace it and do this full time. And so, even more so than learning how to take great pictures, the business side. I mean, I would almost say that's almost more important, learning that edge to make it work.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll talk about it at the end. I developed a business course, and one of the things that I define the difference between a hobby and a career is a hobby is something you love to do, but it cannot sustain you and it over the long period of time. And a career is something you love to do, and it can sustain you. So I think for this group, being about creative professionals, be professional. True professional is someone that has taken something they love and turned it in a situation where they can actually live off of it, where they can thrive, more than survive, but thrive off of it.
And I love that, because I think a lot of them are trying to figure out how to survive by leaving their jobs, whereas what we're going to talk about is actually how to thrive, which is the ultimate goal. Right? I mean, why just break even or kind of scrape by doing what you love when you can actually make this into a phenomenal career?
And you have to. I mean, for any career that you're doing, I mean, just scraping by, then you don't get a chance to grow. And the business part is critical, that we must fall in love with that as well and really enjoy that piece, because that's the piece that's going to allow us to always do more and grow more and be better. David, I'll answer your question in kind of the process of the story. So, was in Chicago, spent a few years there. Photographer I was working with was a fashion photographer, so I got into the fashion world. He was also the president of ASMP, Arizona Society of Media Photographers, and at that point, at 21, he didn't want to run it anymore, so he just handed it over to me. So I'm now running a national organization as president. Even I'm leading all the workshops, all the meetings, kind of like what you're now doing, same with this group. And
Right.
so now at 21, I'm working with a lot of photographers 20, 30, 40 years my senior, helping them with their businesses, helping them grow, really learning what their needs are. From there, got more into fashion, started assisting other photographers, and at the age of 23, was seeing photographers that were 10, 15 years my senior doing what I was already capable of doing. And I said, what is it going to take for me to go from photo assistant to established photographer? And they laid out this path of, well, you're going to take some pictures and get in some model portfolios, and after a couple of years, maybe get a magazine. A couple of years after that, maybe get an article, written about you, and basically they're laying it out that by the time I'm 30, 31, 32, 33, I might be able to be recognized as a pro shooter.
And based on your previous experiences, that wasn't cut it for you.
No, that wasn't going to work for me. Absolutely not. And one of the other pieces, too, that I was really struggling with was one of probably the most valuable lessons that I learned was I was letting the rest of the industry dictate the quality of my photography and dictate my level of success. Meaning, I was shooting a lot of models at that time, working with booking agents and going after some local clients and art directors and advertising agencies, and I knew the level of my work, but they weren't biting, they weren't hiring me, and I was asking the question, what's going on, and I figured out that was all about hype, and it had nothing to do with the quality of my work, and I was really my sense of confidence was dropping because I come from the world of if you do good business, people will hire you. If you have quality work, people will hire you, and this was not happening. And I, then learned about this whole thing about hype and realized that the only way I was going to get hired wasn't on my quality, but was about how to hype myself. And I had to do a real hard sit down and say, is this what you want to do? Is this how you want to approach business? And so I looked at that, and that really wasn't my way of being. I wasn't about that, so I had to make some decisions there at the same time. Again, stories for another time. I was really, being in the fashion world is nice, but there's a whole other dark side to it, and it was starting to get to me. And I was in Hawaii for the 4th time in 3 months. I was unhappy. I was 23 years old, 24 years old, saying, I can't be 24 years old in Hawaii, beautiful everything. Everything's paid for, living a dream that, living a life that most people dream about, and I'm miserable. There's got to be something wrong here. So I actually just got back to Chicago, opened up an atlas, and went alphabetically. Alaska, Alabama, and Arkansas didn't sound really nice. And then I got to Arizona, it's about 30 below in Chicago right now. It's 70 above in Arizona. Let's move out to Phoenix. And I just packed up all my stuff and moved out to Phoenix and just did my thing. And so David, asking where I was based out of, I now live here. I spent 6 months here just kind of meeting people, getting to see what the market was, and this was back in the early 90s when
John says that's the same thing he did. He couldn't take upstate New York anymore.
Yeah. So,
well, and I want to pause real quick for a moment, and I want to let, and I think you already know this, but one of the reasons I created the Arizona Creative Professionals is because I didn't like what was happening in the industry here in Arizona with what I was seeing on the other pages, and that was the only insight I had into it, to be honest with you. And I just didn't like it, and so I created this as my answer, which is kind of and what you did. You moved from Chicago to Arizona, looking to create your own path, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we've kind of established here with Arizona Creative Professionals, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to invite you in, because your philosophy and knowing your story fit perfectly with our vision and our goals that we have here.
Yeah, I think that's why you and I jive because, and that's the thing is like when I came out here, I started meeting, business owners and art directors, and the philosophy was still at that time a little bit more old school. You could do business on a handshake. There was integrity there, and I too wanted to build that community that you have now. There just wasn't a lot. However, the photographers that were here, they were of the old school that they were all about competitiveness, and nobody should. That wasn't my way of doing this. Like, let's build community, but Arizona wasn't. The photographers weren't ready for that yet. I could do good business then, and so
Right.
I built my business up. And how I built my business up was with two key pieces by advice from two photographers. Well, one photographer, then one from groups of photographers. So when I was an assistant, I was leaving to become a photographer. This is when I was in Chicago, and I knew I wanted to become a photographer. I called top 20 photographers in the United States at that point. All said the same thing. It's look, 21, 22, 23 years old, said, I want to become a photographer. If there was one thing you would do differently, what would you do? And all of them said the same thing. I would never hire my first employee. And
Wow.
these were all photographers that had big photo studios, multiple photo studios. I mean, making 7 figures plus. I mean, and all of them, immediately said, if I would ever do it again, I would not hire my first employee. And so I asked them why, and they said, because now I spend most of my time having to work just to cover my overhead. I am constantly under stress of making sure that everyone's bills are paid, that I'm shooting like a whore. I'm not shooting like I love to do it. And I'm taking jobs that I have to take jobs I don't want to take anymore. I'm taking them because it's going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I've lost my love.
So
And
it just becomes a job and not a career, like you said, a career, something you do that you love, you can, survive on and thrive on, and now it just becomes a 9-to-5 grind job where I hate it, but it's a skill and a talent that I have, and it pays the bills, and it pays their bills.
Absolutely, and and one of their things too is because they even said, look, I've got multiple studios because that's what I thought I need, and I've got these enormous studios with hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, of equipment, and most of my clients, they're flying me in other locations. So a lot of times my studio's empty, but I'm having to pay for it, and so. And what's interesting, what I realized too, is I learned that, so when I was out here, if I had a studio where, for my clients, and you and I talked about this before, I could not bill for my studio space. So if my client went in and we did a photo shoot, I couldn't put it as a line item, part of my mortgage payment for that studio. But if I rented someone else's studio, I could then actually bill that, and I could. So when I was out here, even though I was one of the top photographers, I never had a studio. I just rent other photographers their studios and actually bill that to the client. So anytime I wanted, I had an enormous studio with all the equipment I needed, but I never had to worry about any of it. I didn't have to worry about the maintenance of it, the upkeep. I just came in, did my photo shoot, wrote a check to the photographer for using his studio,
right?
Billed that right to the client.
So and I think that's an important thing, because how many of the photographers here are actually billing those expenses to their current clients? Most of them probably aren't doing that. They're just saying, here's a base rate, but not really breaking down what that includes. And that's something that I've been learning recently myself, is sending proposals that have everything itemized on there. which is so perverse. The same reason I sell in boutiques but don't run one of my own. The overhead, yeah, absolutely. So,
Yep.
so there's two things you said. The first one was that they would have never hired their first employee, so they wouldn't have hired anybody. They would have done what you ended up doing potentially, is just renting space that was already there for a particular
Running
shoot.
space, right? And whenever I built up my team of photo assistants, stylists, makeup artists, but they were never on staff. They were always subcontractors. You know,
Right.
where a lot of these photographers had full-time staff, and they had to keep them paid all the time, even when there was not a photo shoot going on.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
um,
Okay. And what
yeah.
was the second thing? Well, there goes my awesome idea of wanting to start a really cool studio. Now I'm worried about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. So, so.
So what was the second thing?
And I'm just blanking on it right now. Um, I think that was in the two. Was not hiring that was the two. Not hiring the first employee, but also not having the studio.
Wow, unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
so
Oh
you
no,
okay?
I'm sorry. I do remember what it was. So the second one was and this was a great talk. I was actually with a photographer. We were flying to the Virgin Islands for a photo shoot. We're doing a swimsuit shoot. And he says, Jeff, he said, because he said 90% of photographers are going after 10% of the work.
Yeah,
So
I
you
remember we
have
talked about this.
Yeah, we have 90% of the photographers going after the big photo shoots like Reebok and Nike and Gap. He said, but there's all this work out there with great clients that no one's going after. And so what I did when I came out here, I looked for those companies, and then instead of going to the advertising agencies, and again, these advertising agencies were filled with people that didn't know anything about photography. They were creative. They didn't know a good photograph if it hit them over the head. And again, another story we can dive
Right.
into when we talk about how to go and start setting a proposal and how to really get yourself noticed. We can talk about that later. But anyway, so I started going after and looking for companies that were good companies and actually interviewed the owners of the companies to see if I'd want to shoot for them. And this goes into kind of what you and I talked about, is instead of chasing the carrot, build the garden. And
Yeah.
so what I would do is
Elaborate a little bit on that because I love that phrase.
okay. So again, a lot of photographers, we all have these dreams of like, oh, I want to photograph this famous person or work for that company because that would be ideal. And I can tell you, whenever I worked with the big companies, it was a big nightmare. And because there's all these hoops you have to jump through, there's all this political bullshit you need to deal with,
Right.
and you're not loyal. And so you're constantly chasing after them. You're whining and dining them. But if you go after companies that are good companies, they're owned by real people, you can develop a relationship with them. And what I did was just built up a garden of these businesses that I just loved to work with and became friends with them and developed a relationship with them beyond just being the one taking pictures. So they developed a loyalty there.
Right.
And that was my garden. So I wasn't chasing after anyone. They were coming to me. People were hearing about my reputation. Whenever I got hired, I had certain values that I set up about I don't bid against other photographers. If you want me, you want me because you know about my reputation and you hire me for that.
So let's say that again. So you said you don't bid against other photographers, and
No.
if they wanted to hire you, they were hiring you, and they
Right.
weren't putting you in the mix with a bunch of others for bidding.
Right, and that
I love that.
and that's what I built. And again, chasing the carrot, you're often running out there. It's like, oh, look at my photos, look at my photos. No, I mean, there's a lot of great photographers out there, and I'm just one of them.
Right.
But the difference was of how I showed up and what kind of business person, how I delivered. That's where I was different. And
So,
what
oh, I'm
go ahead.
sorry. And I want to talk real briefly because what I keep hearing over and over again, and I think this is lost on a lot of people. I get a lot of messages asking me for tips on their business and things like that, and I always go back and I say, well, what's your lead generation look like?
Yeah,
And sometimes I hear, well, what's lead generation? I said, well, that's your problem, that you don't
right.
know what lead generation is. And everything that you said from the time that you were in school reaching out to graduates, that's a form of lead generation. When you moved out here to Arizona and you started meeting with these other companies and putting yourself out there, you weren't throwing your work. I think a lot of photographers today throw their work up on Facebook and Instagram, and they're just like, okay, I'm going to sit back and all the clients are just going to come rushing to me. It does not
No,
work that way.
no,
And you went out and developed these relationships, and for some people it could be making phone calls, some people could be going and actually meeting them and doing events with them, whatever it might be. But I think that is something really key that needs to be kind of highlighted here. And you talk about it so naturally because you just do it, but I think it's important to realize that most individuals who want to be any business owner, to be honest with you, that lead generation gets lost on them.
absolutely. And one of the things that I'd say that I can share with people listening is to understand that if you're going to do it as a hobby, you're a photographer or what makeup artist, model, whatever it is. If you're doing it as a hobby, that's what you are. But if you're doing this as a professional, you're not a photographer. And not to introduce yourself as a photographer. When I started, as you're saying, lead generating, I got clear what I was really doing, and it changed based on my audience, who I wanted to go after. Back when I was shooting portraits and was a portrait photographer, I wasn't a photographer. What I was doing was helping people see how beautiful they were. In a sense, I was a therapist, and I was using a camera to help that process.
Right.
And when I got clear there, when I showed up, I got clear what I was doing was really looking inside that person and finding their beauty, bringing it out, and using this tool, which was a camera, to capture it.
Absolutely.
And um, uh, and
And
so
I like that because what it does is it takes it away from anybody who has a piece of equipment in their hands can call themselves a photographer.
right,
Those who are truly good, it's not the equipment that matters. It's the result, what they're getting. And I mean, you could shoot with the most expensive camera, you could shoot with a point and shoot, but it's that other extra step that
yep,
really makes you great at what you do.
absolutely, and that's understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at that time, when I was shooting portraits, I loved people, and why I was doing is I loved like I really got a deep sense like when someone would look at their photograph and see how beautiful they were because we're so critical of ourselves. I'm not talking models. I'm talking everyday people.
Yeah.
And when they could see their beauty, there was something that was so rewarding their night. And at that point, I realized that's what I was doing. And then when I moved further along, now when I was out here, what I really got off on was helping businesses go to the next level. That I'd work with businesses that had a great, product, whether it be clothing or whatever it was that they were doing, and they were good people, and helping them take that so the world could see it, and
Hmm.
they'd make more money. So when I was out there connecting with business owners, again, I did not say, or when they asked me what I did, was a photographer. I didn't tell them that. What I told them as was one of the, depending on who I was having the conversation, was my job is to help people notice what you're offering in a way that they fall in love with your product or service, whatever it is. Or,
Absolutely.
and then when I got bigger, then it came to be the point when it was a little bit more playful ego there, was when people asked, what do you do? I said, I just add zeros at the end of your income. You just tell me how many
Right.
zeros you want to add on, and I'll take care of that.
I love that. I love that, by the way.
So,
I'm totally
but
still in that.
and you can't. But I showed up that way, and I did
Yeah.
that, and even with that, I always underpromised and overdelivered there. You know, even in that space, you know, people. I mean, their zeros were sometimes multiple
Right.
with my photography,
So
and
when you got okay, so let's go. So because we're running short on
yeah.
time too, and I want to honor everybody's time. So one of the things we did is we came to Arizona, and then what business you did move from portrait work to what kind of work here in Arizona?
So I was known as a advertising and fashion photographer. I did fashion, but it was advertising, and my reputation was at the time that when there was a challenge, they called me in. If they had deadlines, I could shoot a lot faster, and I had the ability and the skill that whatever environment that you put me in, I could shoot it well. You know, we all have skills and crafts. There's some photographers that are great at shooting people, but you put a product in front of them, they're not try to shoot it. Or you know, some are really good at lighting, but outdoors they struggle, or vice versa. I was one of those that whatever the environment the
I see
client
Ronnie
needed,
smiling because that's one of his things that he talked to me about.
which
Yeah,
is
go
that,
ahead.
yeah, and so, and I really pushed myself that way. It's kind of the reputation of kind of the MacGyver of photographers. Is that you could put me in any situation and I could shoot myself out of it and do it well and do it quickly
Right.
and often give the client some more. So that's what I did, and it was
I'm
all
going to pause
high
right
end.
there for a minute because one of the reasons that we do monthly shoots with the Arizona Creative Professionals. We do a couple of them, and there's always kind of a theme and a challenge to it. And one of the reasons I designed it that way was specifically for that purpose because
Yeah.
I want us to practice at this level. So when a client asks you, "Can you shoot this?" The answer is yes, because you've done all this other crazy stuff at this high level
Right.
with these different deadlines and themes and stuff like that, and that is a breeze. It's a walk in the park because you've already done it before in another setting. And so that's one of the reasons that those events are so important, and I don't know if everybody's kind of understood the reason behind them, and it's that reason right there.
That's critical, and that's what I did. So when I was assisting, I was very specific. Again, like with my clients, but I was also specific of okay, this photographer is a genius at indoor lighting, so I'm gonna assist for him for a while and just sponge everything he has. Okay, this guy knows about outdoors. This guy knows about locations. And just really learn from the experts and really focus on that piece.
Yeah.
And Shane, if you ever want, it would be a fun workshop that I've always dreamed of doing, is we do a workshop that we create something, but I would bring in another element of the situation that happened to me on top of just taking pictures. So it's all easy when the models look good, makeup artist there, the lighting's nice. But what happens when another unknown element comes in and you're under the gun for, 3 or 4 or 5 $500,000 photo shoot and it's on you, and without that one element,
Yeah,
so we could always do some
that
things
will be
that way.
coming soon. In a coming month, we'll put that together. I love that
I would
idea.
love that. I've got some great scenarios that simulations we could run people through that help me be even better. So,
Absolutely,
um,
and I think what we can do is part of what we do with a group of shots is it's an opportunity to create content for yourself. So if Ronnie's there taking shots and Perversion's there as a model, it's them opportunity for them to create content that they're doing this stuff to get out there even more, which is really important. So let's go back to your story. Now you're here in Phoenix, and at the peak, what I understand is your day rate. Let's talk about that piece because that's super
yeah,
exciting, right? And obviously there's different ranges. You grow into it, right? You didn't just
right.
wake up one morning and get that day rate. Let's talk about that and even explain what a day rate is because I think until I really started getting in, understanding it and studying it, I didn't even have a clue what a day rate was.
Got it. Okay, so so back then, and, now you just
Where
as
are
a
we
photographer,
talking? Like what time frame? What period?
uh, 90s, 2000s. I think it's still common now. I mean, the day rate's been going on, for. many decades. And what
Yeah.
in the industry that I was in as a photographer, what you did was when you were given a job, you had an idea of, okay, for me to complete this for this client, it might take me X amount of days to shoot it.
Right.
So it could be one product, or it could be, or multiple things. I mean, everything from we've got 50 outfits to shoot, or we've got one bowl of peas on a black background to shoot. What is
Right.
it going to take? And quickly, I learned I was not going to be much of a portrait or a product photographer. I worked with one product photographer where we were literally photographing a bowl of peas for a label on those frozen peas. We were there for 10 hours photographing this bowl of peas. I was watching, it was ridiculous. We're literally moving peas around because the little dimple was not quite right. Just ridiculous. Ridiculous. So, anyway.
I know what to get you for Christmas.
Wow.
A bowl of peas, man.
The frozen generic packages, it was ridiculous. But, this is where photographers would milk it, too, because, you can do that shot in 20 minutes. They were taking all day. So that photographer got, I think he billed out, if I remember at that time, $1,800. That was his time on top of a stylist at $500 a day. 2 photo assistants, me and another at $150 a day, and so forth. So one of it is photographers would bill as a day rate on, okay, it's going to take me X amount of days to do this photo shoot. Now, for me, most of my clients I didn't do by day rate, I did by job. I said, look, I can shoot this. I know I'm fast, but might take most photographers 2 or 3 or 4 days to shoot, I can do in a day.
Right.
And that's going to save you lots of money. But anyway, to answer your question, my average day rate, so I would come in, show up, just my top line item for me was anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 a day. So if I knew that I had to shoot and I had to deliver, and it would take me a day to do that shoot, it was $30,000 to $50,000, and on top of that, my client paid for the locations, the stylist, makeup artist, anything else I needed. That line item went in my pocket,
Right.
And they had no problems with it because they knew I would more than deliver, and that was nothing compared to what the photography was earning them, and how I was able to get that was educating my clients that photography was an investment, not an expense. Most people saw
what kind of clients are we talking about here?
Clothing clients are shooting models. Product clients is doing their product that you see in on magazine ads, high-end advertising stuff. You'd see posters, billboards. Or ads you see, and again, not an article, but an ad that you would put in a national and international magazine.
Absolutely.
So, or product would be, for displays of their pieces wherever their product is being shown. So.
Right. And I remember when I was nervous to raise my rates from $75 for portraits to $150. You know what I mean? I've since gone higher than that, but I remember the trepidation that I had at that point. I can't wait to kind of explore that around. But so with those clients, one of the questions David had, what have you found to be the most profitable genre that you have shot over the course of your career? So I think it's obviously advertising.
Well, I'm going to answer that in a different way because I get that question quite a bit, and I'd say one of the most dangerous things that we could do as photographers, as artists, as creative people, is think the most profitable is by dollar signs. Is what was, for me, I can tell you this, I always worked for free.
So let's explain that. Let's delve into that a little bit.
Okay. Meaning that And so my very first client, if we have time, I'll tell you the story because it's a great story. My very first client that I got out here in the valley, they were a small mom and pop, husband and wife um, team. They could not afford a regular day rate for the photography that they were wanting. So
Okay.
I came in and shot on what they could afford, but I gave them photography on how I wanted to shoot them. So I knew, I mean, I gave them an invoice on what they could afford, but I went in, it's like, you know what? If I could just shoot for free and my bills were paid and I could just do my best, what is that going to look like? And that's how I showed up. I didn't give them this. I mean, I knew I deserved this amount, but they were only paying me this. I didn't give them this. I gave them that.
Yes, I love that.
Okay.
And that's such
And
a huge insight into how you think about others, and I love that. I think that's one of the reasons that you and I really connected really well. Is you don't limit yourself to the amount of money somebody's handing you
no,
as far as value. You're looking to deliver the most valuable possible to them all the time.
thank you. So the most profitable, and I will answer this, are we're working with the clients that I love to work with, and that were fun. They honored me, and they honored my business, and that also, to answer your question, David, became my most financially profitable. So when I first worked with them, one of my clients, I knew I deserved, let's say at the day rate back then, was for what they were looking to shoot back then was I should have been billing them $1,500, $2,000 a day for the stuff they were giving me. But at then, they saw photography as an expense,
Mm-hmm.
not as an investment. So I early on said, you know what? I love the people. I love their stuff. I can see great things. So I'm just going to build them what they can afford, and then slowly showed them how photography was an investment. And they were one of my clients that at the end was paying me $30,000 to $50,000 a day, never questioned my invoices. They just called me and said, we have stuff for you to shoot. I showed up, took care of it, gave an invoice, and they're one of my longest lasting clients because profitability was here, but also the reward was profitability financially. But I
I
approached
love that.
whenever I showed up on set with my camera, it was always about this is what I love to do, and I'm delivering that. The money side happened before and after, but they never crossed over. So
Right.
yeah.
So, and one of the things that I think is interesting is you went and you did this shot for this client the first time, and
Mm-hmm.
you already knew ahead of time that you were going to go and teach them the value of your photography. And I think what some people may miss on there is that means that you intentionally decided ahead of time to build a relationship. So that I call this lead generation. You were going to do one shoot and you were going to forget about them. You were going to follow up with them and build a relationship, do another shoot with them. And I wonder how many times photographers have done an event or done a photo shoot and they just never reached out to that person ever again, kind of forgot about them. They got the money in the bank account, whatever it might be, and they never develop that any further. And that means they always have to keep going and hustling new business. Whereas you use the phrase "create your garden." Said, "Okay, great. We have a small relationship here. Let me coach you and cultivate you into something to where you can understand what I can really do for you." And you grew their profitability in their business, which allowed them to pay you more money.
Absolutely. One of the big things that we often forget and I apologize for everyone else that's not photographers that's listening, just translate whatever you're doing, whether it be a makeup artist. So if you're a makeup artist working with a photographer, remember that photographer most often does not understand makeup the way you do. Okay? And so model, same thing. So photographers, if you're going after a client, that client is not going to understand the value of your photography the way you do. So you have to educate them, and you have to work with them. You have to nurture them and show them what is really possible. and it takes a little bit of time. And most, I mean, everyone that was hiring me as a photographer, they were nervous because they know they needed it, but they didn't understand anything about it. They didn't know how to pick good photography from bad. And when I would actually go in, and then early on, when I was developing these relationships, I would ask them, I said, are you interviewing other photographers? Most of the time they'd say yes. I'm like, tell you what, here's my stuff. I'm going to show you why it's good, but show me the other photographers, because if there's another photographer that's better than me, I'm going to encourage you to hire them instead. But also, I'm going to give you, we talked about this yesterday, Shane, in the meeting that we're at. One of the other things, too, is when I went in, I would ask my clients, do you even know what to ask me as a photographer in hiring me?
Right.
And most of them would not. I'm like, okay, here's a list of the top 10 questions you should be asking photographers to know if they're doing this. I got this when I was when I was working with a wedding photographer, and people would come in and they were trying to find the best wedding photographer for their wedding. I'd say, you're working at other photographers, right? I said, yes. I said, here's a list of questions you should be asking all your photographers.
Oh, I love that. So you know what I'm going to be doing, right? Me creating my list.
Yes, yes. And then we can always do a workshop on that, or depending on your genre, what are the questions you should be educating your clients on? And
right.
What that did is that built trust, and that built my garden. And again, it's already an hour. I mean, I could go on for hours here. I mean,
exactly. We'll wrap up. We'll wrap up here soon. We have a few other things to get to on everybody's time. And you said something else that was really struck a chord with me, and it's the fact that you would refer another photographer if you saw that their work was better suited for what they wanted. And I think that goes to show that there's enough business for everybody. And the scarcity mindset that you can't share, like you had your experience in New York and Chicago, where people didn't want to share. They were closed-minded, and they felt like, you're my competition, and I don't believe in that. I believe that we can all grow by helping each other's businesses, because my ability to shoot X amount of dollars has no bearing on whether or not you shot that same amount or more that week. There's enough clients for everybody.
Yeah, sometime remind me to tell you that's how I got when Marlboro, Marlboro cigarettes.
Yeah.
When that philosophy got them to write me a check for $10,000 more than another photographer. Well, it's a great story. We'll share for another time. But I always kept that. I always kept this core of what I was doing and why I was doing it. And because of that, my entire business was built around that.
Right.
And I think one of the most valuable things was really knowing what are my core values, or what are my philosophy, and I always showed up that way. And when I went to business, when I went with a new client, I said, if you have someone else, I said, let me see let me see these other photographers. Let me help you pick the best photographer. And what would happen, not all the time. And so if you're going to do this as a photographer, don't go this within the intention to manipulate your client. Okay? But I would say more often than not, the clients would hire me anyway because they know they could trust me. And that was the garden that I built. And
I love that.
That was a reputation I built. There's so much work out there if we don't go after the 10%.
Right.
And when I had the 10%, when I worked with those, I never went after them again, even if they, called me back. I mean, I worked with Playboy for a week and I quit, and they called me back, and again, so many stories we could share.
Right.
So,
well, was it because they treated you as a commodity? They can replace you easily.
Actually, no. They treated the model like shit, and they pulled some stuff that they didn't treat me. I mean, actually, in a way, they did. I just didn't exist. But it's a multi-layered story there. So
got
another
it.
time.
But
yeah. So
Yeah. So there's so many good things, and we're obviously gonna bring you back for some more. Now I want to talk. So you started in that, and then now I want to talk a little bit about Career Hearted, what you're doing now, and have you share how that bridged with your photography. So let's go ahead and talk about that real briefly.
Absolutely. It's funny. I'll use this. I'm going to use this as a catchphrase. I just got it today, and I actually loved it. It was, the catchphrase when it wasn't mine. I read an article, and it said, "The more you learn, the more you earn." And so it's a kind of a leader into this. So
I like it.
I do too. So when I was a photographer, even early stages, I had a lot of other photographers coming to me saying, "How'd you get your business so successful?" And I started showing them and just helping them because it's like there's so many opportunities. I'm happy to help out my peers. And one of the big challenges is that I discovered that a lot of these photographers don't understand they're very creative, but they don't understand the business side. So I had to translate business in a language that we as artists could understand. So it wasn't just photographers, anyone in the art community. So it's helping them with their business in all different levels and just whatever they were struggling in, from marketing to creating a filing system to billing to all the behind the scenes that has nothing to do with pressing a button. To even just to, I would show them on how to approach clients. That's where the child psychology came in. So I just taught them business in a way that they could, a language that we could understand as photographers.
Right.
And so then from there, so anyway, just to kind of transition the story. So at the height of my career, story for another time, my world went from high-end fashion advertising photographer to suddenly that entire business disappeared in 3 months.
So
And
what year is this that this is happening?
This is 2003.
2003. And I
2003.
remember you saying you were averaging about one client a month at the high, right?
Yeah.
But you're shooting huge, but I mean your day rates, 30 to 50,000.
I'm turning down over 95% of the work that I'm getting. People would call, say, "I want this shoot." I would interview them and I had a couple key questions I'd ask them, like, "Thank you, here's a photographer I'd recommend." And it was never about money. And they would even pay. That's like, "I'll pay whatever." I'm like, it's not about that.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with a photographer today who shot me a message on Facebook, and he told his experience of saying his first no to, and I keep telling people, when you learn to say no, your business will start to grow.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to rise. We turn that to a phrase. Learn to say no, your business will grow, right?
That's good. Next time I don't have to leverage that too.
Yeah, well, and it was scary as heck for me the first time I did it, but what it allowed me to do was say yes to the right type of work that I wanted to do. And it sounds like that's what started happening with you. So you're 2003, career's at its peak. You're saying no to a lot of business that's coming your way because it's not the right type of client for you. And then 3 months, in a period of 3 months, what happens?
So to back up, just so you know, Shane, I always did that. I always said no. At that point, because of my reputation, I had a lot of phone calls, so I was able to. I was getting before I didn't know here and there, but now it was like most of my calls. So anyway, height of my career, because I had so much free time, working about 1 day a month, took a class in energy medicine, heard about it. Didn't know much about it. Sounded fun. I was close to Sedona, so I heard about all this woo-woo healing stuff that people are doing. And again, the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you earn. I'm like, just try something else. It was always about broadening myself. I had no idea what this would do. So I took this class in energy medicine just for fun. Afterwards, called a couple of my friends and said, "I took this weird class. Can't explain it, but come over. I want to work on you." Anyway, that month that time right before that too, I had a lot of my clients call me saying we need photo shoots. I had all these photo shoots that month before I took this course, so I knew that I didn't have any photo shoots for a couple months. So I took it just for fun anyway.
Right. So Ronnie asked a question. He asked a question if it was Reiki.
It was Reiki on steroids. The system was called Body Talk. So it was Reiki at a whole different level. So But anyway, so a couple months went by where I knew I was not needed, and all my clients were well fed with their photography. It was coming to about June, where it was about time for me to start calling clients and saying, "Hey, are you ready for more stuff?" But anyway, took the class in April. And the end of early May, my photo assistant that I had for 10 years, he called and said, "I'm moving to New York." He says, "I'm ready to take my career to the next level." And I'm like, "Oh, man, I love you. Had you for 10 years. I've been training you for this day. You have my best. Anything you need from me, let me know." I mean, my heart broke because he was an amazing assistant, but it was time. It was time he,
Yeah.
for time, flew the nest. So
The time for the Padawan to become the Jedi, right? He sent it out on his way.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so there he was. So he was off. Not a big deal. It's part of being a photographer. I'd find another, and this would give me some time to start training. So I was looking for other assistants, and I was trying to just kind of interview some. Anyway, 2 weeks after that, my stylist I had for 6 years, one of the best in the industry on the West Coast, he called and said, "Had a nervous breakdown. I'm taking some time off." Thinking, shit. All right. I can find another, I'm sorry, it was not my stylist. I can find another stylist. He knew my stuff. He was absolutely amazing. I can find and train another. Okay, so that happens too.
Okay.
3 weeks after that, my photo lab that I had, this was back in the day, early digital, so I was still doing slides. I was still the best at that point. My photo lab called and they said, "Hey, we're closing down." So my photo lab that I had for 10 years that knew my stuff really well, they closed. So now within a month, no photo assistant, no stylist, no photo lab.
Wow.
Okay,
Triple whammy.
I can find another photo lab. Part of the process, these things come in cycles. Just happens to be happening all at once. Not a big deal. Got this handled. So I started calling all my clients. And this was now 2003, so it's post 9/11. A couple of my clients I know were struggling with their industry. And I called them and they said, it said nothing to do with your photography, just business just didn't survive. And we're out of business. So
Wow.
lost a couple clients. Happens. So those couple clients were gone. And then I had a couple other clients that were newer. And they said, "Yeah, we love your stuff, but our style has changed. We're going with a new photographer now." Again, no big deal. That happens. That's part of the cycle. So now those clients are gone. But I still had a couple of my core, deep-rooted clients I had for 10 years. I positioned myself within their company that it would have been way too costly for them to try to find another photographer.
Right.
And so I knew there was no way, I was going to lose them. I called them, and they both said, "Hey, we need to go out for lunch." They both came with, "Hey, you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese?" I'm thinking, oh. And literally, Shane, in 3 months, I went from a mid six-figure a year photography business where I was working one day a month to absolutely no business at all. I had no assistant, no stylist, no photo lab, and no clients. Every aspect of my business was gone. Yet, I'm doing this weird energy thing, and I have a waiting list, 6 months long, of people wanting to see me for this weird energy thing I'm doing.
Right, right.
And so
you have this convergence of things happening. So you go from, because you set yourself up for this style of photography where you're only shooting a handful of times a year.
Right.
Right? And those clients are gone, and then you've explored this other thing that you've got going on, and then you're realizing, okay, there's a lot of opportunity here.
And the one kicker that was also interesting, remember, I'm turning down about 95% of the work.
Yeah.
At the same time, my phone stopped ringing the first time in years. I mean, literally since that point, and no one knew I was doing this other stuff, since that point, 3 times have I gotten phone calls for photography. and they're also at very unique times. Again, great story for another time. So now I'm in this world of energy healing, and now I find myself, business turned very successful very quickly, and I found, and again, people in this industry, doctors, chiropractors, massage therapists, people coming to me saying, how did you get your business so successful? And I started teaching them, my peers, how to do business. It was the same thing of translating business in a language they could understand.
Right.
And on top of it, I'm in an industry where they're about personal growth and self-development and personalities and belief systems and all this other just crazy stuff that was also involved. I had to further teach them business. I mean, these people had huge issues around money, and they had further egos and stuff that I had to bring in as well. And excuse me, so now I have this whole new business in this world, and people are saying, look, we love what you're sharing with us. You should turn it into a course. Fast forward years of a lot of resistance. I wound up taking everything that I learned from photography that I applied to my business as a healer, that turned that business successful, and everything that I learned in the success of personal growth and self-development. And again, one of the first things I told you was one of the greatest things I learned was child psychology, of how the mind works.
Right.
Is I further developed that into this world of personal growth and self-development, belief systems and all that, of further understanding how the mind works. And then understanding how the mind works on one of the things as a photographer, I was learning, how do people see when one person sees one ad, why do they like it? When another person doesn't. Understanding all that, all these developments of how people learn, I wound up taking everything that I wish a photographer would have taught me on business, everything that I got into running a business as a healer, learning all that, put it into a full course. Everything that I wished I learned and all the secrets that made me successful, I turned it into this course that I shared. And now, I know that was a long-winded, but I'm just super passionate about it, so I can't not talk about it.
For sure.
And
John says using your energy to start a whole new avenue of business, which is what you did. And Praver just says it's definitely all related to growth and learning, whether in business or in self, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I keep telling people. Business it's a process, it's a system, and it translates across all industries, all art forms. If you follow these basic, simple principles, it gives you a result, right?
Super simple, and that's what it is. I mean, and that's one of the things I think made the difference. Why I was so good as a photographer is I was help that client translate whatever they're trying to sell in a way that was simple, that people go, I get that, I want that, whatever it is.
Right.
And I just did the same thing with business when I was helping photographers back in the day. Was like, oh, I get that, I can do that. And then when I got as a photographer, I understand that, I can get past all my stuff and I can do that. I can implement that. That makes sense. It just is logical. And and so I turned that into the course. I taught my first course by people that knew me, and after that, over the last years, I've actually never marketed. No different than I was a photographer. Someone up there said, what did you use as your marketing tools? Honestly, it was this and this. My heart and understanding how to speak. Not very much. As a photographer, I never showed a portfolio. I knew how to speak. Never showed a portfolio. When people, but I knew what to say to entice the client to hire me. I knew what they were looking for. The reason why I never showed them a portfolio is because I understood chances are they wouldn't know what a good photographer, a good photograph, or a bad photograph was.
Right.
It didn't matter what I showed them. What they wanted to know was if I knew how to take what they were wanting me to photograph and help them make money.
Right.
And that's what I did. Is I went in heart passion. I knew what to say and I knew how to talk to them. And so when I got into the business of healing, same thing. I wasn't selling them healing. people had one question: can what you do make me feel better? I knew how to speak from that, from the heart. And that's what I'm teaching on the business side. Same thing, educating you on how to do business and what makes sense. It's simple, but we get into all this other stuff, think it's super complex. So I took everything and I put this in the course. Anyway, taught the course once. I've never marketed, never advertised. I've actually taught it all over the world. And it's been refined and it's been polished. It's now online, so anyone can have access to it. Because
What's it called?
The business course is called Career Hearted. The reason for that is one thing that I know in all the industries that we're in is people are doing this stuff because they love to do it. Again, the only difference between a hobby and a career, a hobby is something that we love to do, but it can't sustain us. A career is something that we love to do, and we've learned how to have it sustain us. And so Career Hearted is that. It's teaching us how to do what we love to do, and we are also in a big trend change. People are now changing, back years ago, people were about, I need to get a business or do something that can earn me an income so I can someday retire. People have different motivations now. They're less motivated about money, they're more motivated about meaning. And I want to teach how you can do something of meaning and make a shitload of money at the same time.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you can do both.
Right.
And one shouldn't compromise the other. I love to make money. I really do. It's a lot of fun. But it's fun to do. It's not what drives me.
Right.
So do I still work as a photographer? I do what I've always done is I take pictures and I love to do it. Right now, it's a hobby where I'm not focused on it being the thing that sustains me financially. Career Hearted is something that I love to do, and that is my focus on what sustains me as well as the healing stuff. I do have, David, it's funny how this stuff comes full circle. Out of nowhere, I've had people calling me and asking me to do really what, again, I wasn't a photographer. I never took pictures. I was not a photographer. I was a person that helped people with their business. So what I'm terming myself as a visual strategist. And I'll come people and help them visually strategize their business. Now, if they need me to press a button, use my camera, I will.
Right.
So when people ask me about my photography, I've always taken pictures. I've always been a hobbyist as a photographer. As a working photographer, I was never a working photographer.
Right.
I did things, and photography was a tool. David, does that make sense to you? Does that understand the difference? And it's important to understand the difference, how we think about it.
So essentially what you did is kind of the Career Hearted seems to be kind of the culmination of that, because as you're growing your photography business, what you're really doing is educating them on business and how to grow it. You just happen to have a camera in your hand to take a photo to help them do that. And then, like you said, you can take away the camera, but those skills and that ability to teach them about their business is still there, which now is manifests itself as Career Hearted for you. Absolutely,
yes. And all of that's in the course. All the secrets of how I built up a really successful business, and the philosophies that I did on how I talk about creating the garden versus chasing the carrot, is how I built that, and the philosophies behind that. All of that's in that course because people are asking me the same questions over and over again, and so I put those in there. And that's what Career Hearted is. So.
And so David says, when you say you've never been a working photographer, do you mean you didn't see yourself as a photographer first?
Okay, no, I always saw myself as a photographer because that's what I love to do. My business, when I became as a working photographer, I think it says, do I still do bit? So when someone says, do you still work as a photographer, how I was interpreting it is, do you still do business as a photographer? That's how I was translating it. I still take pictures all the time. And
Right.
I've got, so I am, yes, I still, even sharing with people how to be successful doing what they love, and I'm up there traveling the world doing it, my mind still goes, how am I doing this? I, I thought I'm supposed to be photographing models all day. How am I teaching people about business, or I teach people about healing? It's like, how did this happen? I always saw myself as a photographer first. I've been doing it since I was 9. It's just part of my being, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, you know, um, it's like asking, do I see myself as a male being first? Yeah, I mean, it's part of who I am.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but but
Absolutely.
but about career hardship, I think that's important, is to share, is that it's in there. It's everything that someone's needed. It's like everything wish someone could teach me, and everything I've taught people and wanted to teach people, I jammed in that course. It's so um, content full. Um, one of my someone that actually took the course, that was a photographer. Um, he'd actually taken another course and spent, I think, about 5 or 6 grand on it. And he said, I've taken a lot of courses. He said the difference with most courses is people have an idea and then they try to build a whole marketing thing around and sell it. Career Hearted is packed with a whole bunch of stuff, and you're just selling that. So anything you could think to ask me is in that course.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. And I know that so some of you guys may be thinking like, what is Career Hard? And I've taken a look at it, and I've always been involved in training. I mean, last year, there's just a ton of money invested in business coaches. Mike Bastian, shout out to him, was my business coach, phenomenal guy, and it was $1,000 a month for me to have a 30-minute phone call once a week with this guy, and the best investment
yep,
ever
yep.
in me that was made by the owner of the company is just awesome. And so a huge believer in that. And so Career Hearted is a course that anybody can take and have access to. And I think you created a special promo for the Up Tribe, or for
Yeah,
not for Up,
I did.
for us here, right? Is that right?
I did.
Okay, so I'm gonna share the link here in the chat so everybody can go there and take a look at that. And what do you want them to know when they go and take a look at Career Hearted itself? And before we answer that question, know that we're going to have you back sharing some more insights and stuff, and basically pulling little bits and pieces from this course that you've created to kind of give some taste of that to those in the ACP.
I love that. So the first thing that I'll share with this is I know when I was on the other side of this call, was when these things were offered, was, especially because it was my business, was that question of how much and the money going out, because when we're in business we're always worried about money, is it going to be worth it and all that. One thing that I've done is that they're just known this, so there's no fear in taking this course at all, that I guarantee it 100%. So if you're not happy with it, you do the course, I refund your money, so there's no risk at all. So you don't have,
Right.
so that's just, we can just get that off the table.
Right.
And to know when they go there, the course is everything that I've taught when I was teaching photographers, and I really broke it down in a way that we could understand it. It is a step-by-step. Everything you need to do, it's taught in a order because business is built in a certain order. And so I'm leading you step by step, everything you need to know. There's going to be stuff that you've probably already heard about, just not in this way. The another thing to know too is that part of it is because I've really wanted to get this back into the photography community. I mean, I've been rich within the health and wellness community, but one of my passions was to bring this back into the artist community, and you guys are the first time I've got to share with that. So the course, yeah, so I'm real excited about that. So a couple things. One, as in any industry, I talk about money is energy, and energy loves motion. And the more motion you create, the more money you're going to make. And so the more movement you make. So there's a whole, getting the woo-woo side, there's a whole side of this money-making movement. So know that, especially in business, early adopters are the ones that are going to get the greatest rewards. The ones that are first on set are going to get the greatest rewards. The ones that are up early, up before the sunrise, get the best sunrises. Okay,
Right.
so what we've done, so what I did was, I know a lot of you guys have not heard about me yet, so there's a trust factor there that needs to be earned. But this course will be it's 47% off, and Shane and I are going to do 2 private coaching calls with you after you take the course. Okay, and this will be the only time they offer this at that level of discount and these bonuses. I'm a man of my word. I will never offer it at this deep of a discount again. We might do other offers, which is part of it, and this wasn't really to do an upsell to the course. This is very quiet, but as a side, for those that are part of it, this will be the only time that you guys can get it this price, and I promise you we won't ever do it again at this level. So it's for you guys that are here now in that one.
Absolutely.
First time. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And so obviously, let's share your contact info too. So if anybody's got any questions after this, I want to make sure that they know how to get a hold of you. So
Absolutely.
In the chat, could you type in your email on there so they can reach out to you if they have any questions? And with everybody in here, I want to share something really exciting that we've been talking about it in the back with some of the admins with ACP. And we haven't really spoken about it in the group yet. You guys will be the first to know. We're creating essentially a Creative Professionals 2.0. And I've always said that our vision and goal is to take this to multiple cities, to where we can have artists in different areas sharing and collaborating, and at a bigger level where Phoenix travels to Austin and San Diego, and they come here and we share photo shoots and our sites and our locations and our business practices. And so we've been working with Jeffrey in the back end to kind of create that process and that system. And the Creative Professionals 2.0, what we're going to be doing is adding all the business layer stuff that we don't really see right now in the Arizona Creative Professionals at a super high level, just because we were creating a community. So that's going to be coming out. I want to let you guys know that's kind of where we're headed with the Creative Professionals, and it's pretty exciting to think about that as we're putting it all together.
I'm super excited about this, and just so you know, I put in 2 emails just to help me with my day, because I get a lot of emails from clients and stuff like that in a lot of different areas. So if you have any photography questions, just use my photo email, jeff@jagphotoinc.com. If you have any questions about the business course, shoot them to me at jeff@careerhearted.com. Both of those go directly to me, so you'll bypass my gatekeepers to get directly to me. But if you just do me a favor, that'll help me manage my day and how to answer questions for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the tribe that we're building, Shane, I'm super excited about, because it's going to be all the stuff of my 30 plus years, and and understanding how to build, just what we need in an organization, creating and giving back to photographers and artists what they're needing is that community. So I'm excited to build this with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things that I think we got along so well. And the people on this call and those in ACP, the thing that excites me is like people like Ronnie and David and Jim. These people are amazing at what they do, and they don't mind open up the book and sharing with somebody else what it is that they're doing that's working. And what we've been able to do with Arizona Creative Professionals is create a place where those like-minded individuals can say, hey, let's come together and share. And we have kind of, like you said, we have this tribe now that exists. And so you're now a part of the tribe. We're going to bring you into this, man.
I'm excited.
Absolutely. And we're always looking for amazing talent to share this kind of content. And I'm a huge believer that in order to teach somebody something effectively, you should have already done it, right? I can't teach a basketball player how to be a great basketball player. I'm 5'6". I'm not good at it. It's not going to happen, right? However, having your level of photography and having access to kind of that vantage point is going to be huge value to the artist in the group. So we look forward to hearing more from you on those aspects as well.
I'm excited to share. My head bursts with stuff. So anytime we can find an outlet for it, it'll be a lot of fun, and we can play both sides. I think you and I talked about that between photo workshops on just kind of bringing in some photo skills from wedding to working with clients to business side as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then even just hard knocks, just scenarios of how I had to kind of find my way through situations as well. That
right.
We could do some fun workshops that way as well. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Does anybody have any last-minute questions before we wrap up? We took you guys over 38 minutes past our deadline. There was just tons of value, so we appreciate you guys staying with us this whole time through that, and I hope it was very valuable for you guys. So if you found it rewarding, please comment, let Jeffrey know how much you appreciated it, and then ask any last-minute questions that you have. We'll give you here a minute if you have any.
So does Creator go into things like billing and things like that? Yes. There's a whole section that I walk you through. I walk you through every single step. Now, do I go through billing like how to bill as a photographer for a client? I don't go into that level. I go into basic level of really understanding money and how to work with money, and then how to organize your bills. Ron, if you're looking for how do I bill a client, that's kind of next level. Is that what level of billing are you needing?
So here, maybe what I can do is kind of let me try to unmute everybody here really quick, and let's see if this might help.
Okay, great.
So David, Perversia, Ronnie, Jim, all right, everybody should be unmuted real quick. John, I'm having trouble unmuting you.
Okay, I don't think John. Ron, why don't you ask me?
He said he didn't have a microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Ron, go ahead and ask me. You're saying about billing. What were you looking for? Oops, Ron, you're still mute.
Why are you still on mute, buddy? I think he muted himself. I think you're still on mute.
Did you mute yourself?
I think you did.
So while you're working that, I'll get, yeah, okay, while you're doing that, I'll do John's. Are there any tips you can give us to those of us working on moving our business to the next level? Let's see. It's kind of a broad question. Yes, I think the next level is getting really clear what you want to be shooting and who you want to be shooting for, and doing your due diligence, doing your research on them. So, Ron, did your mic work yet? Not yet. Okay. Okay. We'll talk about it later. So, my first client I won by really understanding the industry I was going into. So when I went there educated. So when I was going into business in a certain industry, I educated myself about that. When I wanted to go move myself to the next level as like a new level of skill, I then started shooting that style of photography a lot. Not only did I shoot it, but I was gathering tons of photography. I was building photo books, so I was looking at it daily. Everything in my world was about that. I'd fully immerse myself on both sides, on practicing taking pictures, but building just scrapbooks of those photos. So whatever I'd move myself into, I immersed myself in that. I would ask others that were already there, ask them questions, learn from them, and ask them questions. What do I need to know? You're already in it. I'm not there. What questions should I be asking you? So, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. In fact, and I shared this with the group, for the first time as a photographer, I just had my first $2,000 week of clients, right? Which was really
Congratulations.
cool for me. Yeah, in 1 week to do that. And one of the things that happened is one of those clients they were looking through my portfolio, and they said that image is what we want for us. And so I think your idea of you shoot for the kind of clients that you want to have. So when they look at it, they're like, yes, we want that for us. Can you do that?
I and so I just in career art, of course, I actually talk about that. I use a lot of examples and analogies that help really set that. And I talk about how a young, inspiring photographer that never even really took pictures before, what he did to photograph his dream model and actually got to photograph her, and what he did and the advice that he's given to get that, and how that advice, when I share that story, the advice is an analogy and a moral for multiple things that I'm talking about here, is that you just, whatever you're going to move into, you find people that are already doing it, and you just immerse yourself in as many different aspects of it that you can. So,
Got
so
it.
going back to Ron's question, just curious about billing when you're giving a flat rate. So I think what we should probably do, Shane, is sometime have a talk just about billing, and I can bring out,
Yeah.
show my own invoices, and talk about line items, and talk about not only. So one of the things I talk about in Career Hearted, what Career Hearted is an interweaving between business growth and personal growth. And I will line item, again, one of the biggest courses I took was child psychology. When I'm billing, money is a psychology thing. And so how I line item the money piece and the psychology behind it when I put things in place.
Right, and that's something that I've just recently started doing as well, and I think it helps I mean, we're going to do a whole thing on this, Ronnie. I'll make sure that we get something together and bring you back to actually talk just about this, but you're right, because even just the act of saying, okay, if you just quote a client X amount of dollars, but they don't see everything behind it, they might not value it as much. But when they see everything lined up in there, they realize that there's a lot that goes into it. And even you as a photographer, it's important. When I started doing it, what I realized is how much work and effort I'm really putting in to make a photo shoot happen, what needs to go into it, and what kind of expenses I have associated with every photo shoot, because you don't shoot an image without incurring some kind of cost, right? And so that helped me to understand that even clearer, and then say, okay, where do I really want my profits to be, and am I honoring my goals by with my prices and my line items? So, yep.
Yeah, and we'll go back to so this thing on billing is an important one, and it's really probably an hour, 90-minute conversation, because there's a lot of details, and again, the psychology behind it. So just Ron, I do not go into this piece, this detail in the course, but I go into really you getting more comfortable around your money and really understanding the psychology of money, because you need to know that first. How to bill, that's just a subset to it. It's no different than when people come to me and saying, well, what camera should I buy? Well, before we talk about what camera should you buy, let's talk about what kind of pictures you want to take. So what Career Hearted is it's the root of everything you need way before you even need to think about how to bill. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And the most business courses and most people that I've met in business, I don't care if they've been doing business, they've never been doing business or business for 20 years. Most business education courses and people are working around steps 4 through 10, and they've missed steps 0 through 4. Career Hearted covers 0 through 10, and it really gets you into the 0s through 4 that you're missing, and I guarantee you it's stuff that you've missed that's going to make all the difference in your success. And trust me, I'm not trying to push the course. Just as a photographer, I want to help you, and as much as I'd love to help you on how do you handle being on set and all of a sudden all your camera lights blow and you're out in Vegas, how do you handle that situation to, understand the business stuff? It's like, I want to share this stuff with you, and Career Hard is a business stuff, and I want to see you guys be a success, and it's in there. So I'm sharing it from here. That's the only reason why you get me being passionate about it.
Absolutely, man.
So,
Any other questions?
Can you guys hear me now?
yes,
Yeah.
there you are.
All right. Sorry about that. Well, I just wanted to say, Nell, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And
Thanks.
yeah. So technology, yeah, exactly. So, guys, I've got the night. I mean, we can go on as long as you want. My time is here for you. I love doing this. So, I'd say I know billing's a big one. So if there's, I'd say let's just have a course on that. But if there's anything else anyone wants to know.
What would you say was your biggest challenge to hitting to your growth initially? Because we all have challenges. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you experienced? And then what was kind of the aha moment when you realized, wow, if I solve this, I can get this? And then how did you make that happen?
Honestly, and it's a mind fuck, and I'm sorry to share this with you, but it's true. The hardest thing was letting go, was trusting the process and understanding the flow of it. That was the hardest thing, is because I so felt I needed to control everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mindfuck part about it. So that's the true answer. I think one of the things that that you guys can do is know that you know your work and the level and quality that you shoot, and only honor that. Don't let anyone else manage your emotions on your confidence around your quality of work. Okay? Because if you think they are an expert, they're not. Okay? They're not. When you go into the business, when you're going after those carrots, those clients, they're not going to know the level that you know. Okay? So you have to educate them. When I got that and I let go of thinking that they were the expert to dictate my success, I became so much more successful.
I love that.
Does that make sense? So,
Yes.
and then, in photography, and in the credit course, I'm referring back to that. I teach you stories and I share stuff. I give analogies and I give you the tools on how to gain that internal peace, so you can really let it go. I teach about how your business is literally a living being, and trusting it to also take care of you, and how to do that. And that's where it is. I give you that piece. So
Very cool.
So
all right.
Question. Good question.
Any other questions from the group here?
Not at the moment.
That looks like we're good. So what we'll do is, Jeffrey, you and I will get together. We'll talk about what the next step will be. It will definitely be coming back and sharing again. And I love doing the webinar thing because I think it allows us to have content that can continue to deliver and give to others who aren't able to be here. Mm-hmm. And it also opens up opportunities for women.
Absolutely. I think I cut off there, but I think builds up the awareness. Yeah, and I do, and I love this stuff. This just fires me up. No different than when I see someone just fall in love with themselves and see how beautiful they are. This helping people succeed is something that lights me up. So use me. Let's see what we can do to really help Arizona professionals really.
Absolutely. We'll bring you back for a photo shoot and throw in some of those elements, some of those scenarios.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's
anytime. Cool. Let me know when you guys have your next one. I'd love to show up.
Come up to Fossil Springs with us.
Absolutely. We'll make that happen, man. So, okay. Praberja, John, Jim, David, Ronnie, I appreciate you guys being on the Google Hangout. And for everybody on YouTube watching this, I hope this helps. Take care, guys. And follow us online, Arizona Creative Professionals. If you don't know who we are, we're a group of passionate artists who believe that we can help grow by helping those around us as well. So if that's how you think, definitely join us online. Search us at Arizona Creative Professionals on Facebook and click to join. Take care, guys. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Have a good night.
Have a good one, guys.